Building AI agents in production. This is another episode in which I'm picking the brains and trying to dissect what it looks like to build AI agents that actually are useful in production and not just demo ready. And in this specific conversation, my guest is Amos Bar Joseph. He's one of the founders of SWAN or SWAN.AI. The website is getswan.com. Basically, it's a tool for RevOps, allowing you to turn visitors into deals, mostly focused on B2B. They have very useful AI agents for Slack, and that allow sales team in order to increase pipeline and increase sales. Obviously, I'm going to share the link in the description, and if this is something of interest, I invite you to check it out. Beyond checking their website, I highly recommend that you check out Amos' LinkedIn, because he has been growing a massive audience lately. I think in the past 6 months or so, he's playing founder-led growth. This is what they are doing. This is how they mostly acquire new customers. And his posts are very provocative and insightful about AI agents, using them in production, what it means to build a small startup without funding, why is it better in his opinion in opposing to raising money and building a huge team. So many topics that are related to the mindset shift when it comes to utilizing AI and using AI as a tool, as a lever, in order to increase productivity and build a better product and a company. So I'm sure that you will enjoy this conversation, which goes on a very broad range of topics, from what I already mentioned and a few more things. The difference or the importance of, for example, the importance of context and memory, and different ways to grow your RevOps initiatives, etc. I guess that's pretty much it. I leave this to you guys to enjoy the conversation with Amos. Again, the links are going to be in the description. Please enjoy. Hi Amos, how are you?
I'm doing great, Yaron. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. We just switched from Hebrew to English, so it might take us a while to warm up, but I believe we'll get into the nitty-gritty very fast. Before we get started, I'll tell you that I'm very impressed by what you're doing in your LinkedIn game. I love reading your content, and I definitely recommend everyone check it out. We'll probably dive deeper into this in a moment. Just providing context for the speakers who don't know you, to the listeners who don't know you, you mind sharing a bit about yourself and about your company?
Yeah, for sure. So this is not my first rodeo, actually. I've built two companies prior to this one, all based on kind of like the growth at all costs playbook, the unicorn playbook, where you raise a big fat seed before you get to product market fit, and then you scale to 30 people before you get to your first $1 million in revenue. And then you brute force your way from there, try to move from Series A to Series B every time. It's a breathtaking endeavor. And the entire company is kind of built on this very sick foundation. And this time, together with my two co-founders, Ido and Neve, that joined me in my two previous rounds, we decided to build a different company, SWAN. We call this model the autonomous business model, basically. And we tried building a business that is designed around scaling with intelligence, not with headcount, that is optimized for execution speed and decision-making velocity. And it's a journey to discover the 100x version of ourselves. Basically, how can we leverage AI agents to kind of like push the boundaries of business efficiency beyond what we have kind of like known before.
Awesome. While you were talking, I remembered this framework which is provided by Naval Ravikant. Do you know Naval Ravikant? So we have this framework about like the 4 levers. And when I heard this for the first time, it completely changed also how I view business. So we said one lever is capital. You can pour in more money. The other one is people, hire more people. The third one is code, so automating stuff. And the fourth one is media, so scaling one to n, like you do, for example, in LinkedIn, for example. And he said that the latter two, like code and media, are permissionless. So basically, you don't need anyone to do them. So once I heard this, I think it was like 5 years ago, it completely changed my view, and I'm so excited to hear more people who have like almost similar view. So do you mind sharing, based on this, the usage of 100, the premise of I want to 100x myself. So what is the hypothesis there? That faster decision making, you mentioned velocity. So please elaborate.
Yeah, definitely. So, traditional companies, the more they scale, the more they deaccelerate. They become slower. More managerial layers, more approvals, more processes, more bureaucracies, more meetings, and everything basically just starts to slow down. And the org chart, or the governance of a regular corporation, was built to kind of like scale coordination between a lot of people. And so you have all these functions and all these processes in place. And when you look at a startup, basically like an early stage company, its only advantage basically is the speed of execution, the speed of decision making within the company. So if we look at Swan, we have so many competitors out there in the market. We're operating kind of like in go-to-market technology, and we can talk about that later on during the podcast. But Salesforce has 100x the sales size of ours, right? And HubSpot has maybe 1000x the marketing budget, and OpenAI has maybe 100x the maybe 1000x the engineering velocity of ours, right? And so we want to compete with these companies eventually. So how do we do that? By making decisions faster than them. That is our only advantage that we have, iterating faster on kind of like this new realm of AI agents in the future. So kind of like getting to the future faster than them by realizing what to do and iterating on that. And so the autonomous business model is basically an architecture of a company that is built to maximize the speed of execution by leveraging human and AI collaboration at the core of it, building a flat organization where every person on the team had, instead of managing departments, orchestrate intelligence. And that intelligence is supposed to amplify that specific person. So it's not that specific person is just, like an IT admin that is just managing permissions and workflows. No, that person has a goal and has KPIs and strategies and tactics to achieve this goal. And to do that effectively, they orchestrate an army of AI agents. And we can even go further down the rabbit hole to understand which functions an autonomous business have, what we have internally. But the entire premise basically is, like Bill Gates coined 25 years ago, a business that moves at the speed of thought.
That's fascinating. Before we dive into things, everyone is talking these days about context engineering. So let's perhaps provide a bit more context for the listeners about what you guys are doing, because we both know, but this might be missing for people who are listeners and don't know what you guys are doing. So elaborate, let's provide the context, and then we move forward.
Let's do it, happily. So at Swan, we're building kind of like Lovable for go-to-market. You can think of it like that. It's an AI go-to-market engineer. It's an engineering resource that sits, in the sales and marketing departments that helps sellers and marketeers to turn any go-to-market idea into an agentic workflow, from prompt to pipeline in seconds. So they can scale revenue with intelligence, not headcount. And it's a Slack app. Swan lives in Slack because we believe that agents should live in Slack, and we can talk about that, Yaron, as well. But Swan lives in Slack. It is connected to your CRM. It has LinkedIn automation, email automation. It has access to our own B2B databases, signals, and a lot of context around these third-party data around your accounts and leads, etc. And you can just request it to, run these workflows. If it's you have demo requests and you want to qualify these requests and research them and route it to the relevant rep within the company. Or if you want to run an intelligent account-based marketing campaign on a list of accounts within your HubSpot CRM, or if you have a webinar and you have a list of attendees and you want to go through these list of attendees and understand who is relevant for your business, and then reach out to them in a personalized way and ask them for a follow-up meeting. And Swan could help you with all these things. You just tell it how to build it, what do you want it to do, and it will just build it for you.
Awesome. And feel free to say that you don't want to expose this, but do you mind sharing? Are the agents built dynamically? And if not, which agents do you have? So I'm assuming you have a scraping agent, copywriting agent, but if you don't mind sharing,
Yeah.
so that will be cool.
Of course. No, I came here to open the books, Yaron. Nothing is out of limit. So we have a multi-agent architecture, okay, and we're iterating on that constantly. We have two main agents that have the most impact. One of them is the architect itself, the one that builds these playbooks, and that agent is more the planner that creates the plan that the rest of the architecture should follow in some way. So it needs to verify that the instructions are accurate if we're actually trying to fetch a list within HubSpot. So the list name is correct. If you want to notify someone on Slack within that Slack, so that Slack ID that we have is indeed verified. So that is a very complex and important task, and this is one of the two main agents that we have: the architect, the planner, the playbook maker. We call it the architect. Then we have another agent, which is the execution agent, the executor. And that agent is more like a router, you can think of it, that always has the plan, the playbook that the architect gave him, and according to the playbook, runs through the maze of all the agents that we have and try to say, yeah, I think this one, we need you right now. Wow, I think that we need you right now. That's what the executor does. And the executor basically has an army of agents, you can call them tools basically, that it can use to perform the steps required in the playbook. And then we have a lot of agents. We have researcher, that performs online research that is actually based on Perplexity. We have an agent that personalizes messages based on the context and instructions and examples, etc. We have an agent to find prospects within a company. We have an agent that can update the CRM. Can have read and write privileges into the CRM and can update that, etc., etc. So this is the architecture that we have. We have the architect and we have the executor, and the executor has access to various different agents, and this is constantly evolving in how we can build these agents, how we can compose them, and how they cooperate with the executor.
Awesome, great. Regarding these iterations and these adjustments, do you mind sharing a surprising or very interesting feedback that you got from a user that significantly changed your structure or the way that you build this multi-agent workflow?
Yeah. So I believe that the biggest frontier in agentic systems has yet to be solved at all, and it's memory, actually. So everyone is still obsessing over the model performance, but I believe that we're reaching saturation there in terms of the incremental improvements over the foundational model, and you see that people are trying to innovate. Grok for just came with this multi-agent architecture, etc. So these are more innovations on the architecture itself, not on the model itself. Right? We're trying to move beyond that. But what I believe is that the biggest unsolved frontier is memory. So our users, typically they have multiple users that are interacting with SWAN in slightly different contexts. And over time, not only that the organization needs kind of like a memory that evolves with it so that every time it gives SWAN feedback, it needs to kind of like recall that for future actions. It would actually be beneficial to break it down by users sometimes, because, for example, if we're just thinking of a style of outreach, like some people prefer a different styling of messages than others, and some people prefer to rely on specific data points when they try to formulate their strategy, because that's where they feel more comfortable in terms of like analyzing a specific account. And so we're not there yet at SWAN, just because the technology is not ready, and we're not going to build like a memory technology of our own. But we are like trying to work with the latest technologies out there of graph memory and things that are super interesting. And what we're trying to create is this mechanism, what we call feedback loops, where every interaction with the agent is built in a way that the user can give feedback on it, and that will go into the system in one way or another of a memory. Basically, some memory aspects are super basic, just go to the prompt in context, you just push it all the time. Some things are a little bit more complex, and we try to kind of like iterate on that. But that's like the most important thing that we realize that agents are missing right now. And that is relevant, I believe, for like every agent that you build. It's missing in ChatGPT, it's missing in Gemini, it's missing in every agentic interaction that is happening across the web right now.
That's fascinating, because I never viewed memory as so important. I believe, like, from what I feel, we're lacking reliability. So whenever I build a workflow, it's mostly relying on many guardrails that I set up front. I don't let the LLM dictate too much. And a few weeks ago, I realized that evals are probably the missing part, based on my opinion. Like, just building specific evals, specific for each workflow, this can enhance reliability. And basically, it relates to the feedback loop that you mentioned. But I never thought about this memory factor, which is very interesting.
Yeah, you could also think about memory as a guardrail as well. So that's why I think that memory is a huge unlock. I don't underestimate the importance of evals, and I think that as an industry, we're advancing there, and it's important. But evals are, to prevent something, okay? And memory is to unlock something. So that's why I think memory is like 10x bigger than that, because we're talking about AGI, and I think that, or super intelligence, whatever. So I think that memory is the biggest piece that is missing towards actually getting to a level of intelligence. Doesn't matter the definition, but a level of intelligence that feels superior to us. I think that memory will actually give that feeling for human beings to actually interact with something that is smarter than us, because it remembers everything. That is something that we humans cannot do. But if you look at memory as a guardrail, actually, that's how we look at it at SWAN as well, because a way to prevent an hallucination or error or something is by trying to predict it or trying to look at it from a statistical point of view. This is one way. But another way is to just give the user a mechanism to highlight that this is an anomaly, or this is something that it wasn't expecting from the model, and the model to be able to remember this guardrail from the user and implement it at the right moment, so that whenever there's a task that is related to that, it will get that memory from the user. It says, you know what, when this is the task involved, I don't want you to do X. And so instead of trying to solve this in a very super complex statistical way, you can just solve it from a user feedback mechanism.
Yeah, but basically, I think what we're saying is kind of similar in a way, because we both want a self-improving agent, that the context is constantly being refined and the prompt is constantly being refined. But it's all related to reliability, and let me somewhat transition in regards to reliability. You guys are not offering self-serve at the moment, am I correct?
We do offer self-serve. It's hidden somewhere in the website, just because we have like an agent that routes anyone who requests access. And if you fall under specific conditions, you can access our free trial.
Because this relates to the discussion about reliability. So I'm curious to hear in regards of adaptation, what are you seeing as a product owner, like an AI native product owner? What are you seeing are the reactions, or where are customers struggling with? Because if it's like you guys providing the service under the hood, like Wizard of Oz, you run your own agents and then give them the results, it's one thing. And a lot of companies are probably going to go that route. But when you're providing like a self-serve, the customers probably have different struggles. So I'm curious to hear like your philosophy around building an AI native product, and should you market it like more as a service and use an agent under the hood, or self-serve, pros and cons for both, but I want to hear your opinion.
Yeah. So just to make sure I understand, Yaron, this is like a question about should we run things as a service and self-serve, or is it more a question about like how do we handle the reliability? Could you double down on that? That would be great.
Based on your perspective so far, what do you think makes most sense for building an AI native product as an agent under the hood as a service, or you feel that it can already scale as a SaaS? Because SaaS is very low touch. You give it to a high volume of users, let's say 49.99. Obviously, there are outliers and exceptions, but in general, that has to be very reliable and very, the customer needs to have like a flawless experience, which is very hard to produce these days. So this is why I'm curious to hear your philosophy.
Got it. Understood. So my answer is actually neither. Okay. I try to be sophisticated here. I would say that the best way to build an AI native company is to start as a service company and productize your offering as you scale. Okay. And I'll start with why the opposite of that is a complete mistake, and then we'll transition to why this is the right solution. So when you are building an AI product, you start becoming a service company, because to take it from 90% to 100% amazing performance, it takes that human in the loop right at the end. And because you're trying to scale a product, you will compromise on that service layer. And so you won't be able really to take it from 90 to 100% unless you're kind of like doing like extremely enterprise sales, and then you will try to weave it in the onboarding process or like the professional services, and you will mask it under customer success or whatever. So that's like that is terrible. It hurts your ability to scale. It hurts your your P&L. It hurts so many things, right? But when you look at service companies, and when you look at today's service companies, what they're starting to realize is that they can productize a lot of the services that they offer to their customers. I have a good friend of mine that has like a growth marketing agency, and they had a lot of human labor involved processes that they need to conduct just to provide value to their existing customer base, and they're realizing that a lot of these offerings can now be automated with AI and human plus AI collaboration. And so when we built SWAN, we started as a service, right? We realized that we want to give like the 11-star experience to our customers. And then we tried productizing each aspect of our onboarding process, basically. And eventually what we've built into SWAN is that we call it the concierge. It's an agent that is able to onboard customers successfully based on all the knowledge that we had, like what should be the questions, what should be the process. So that concierge mimics the services that we provided to our initial customers when we onboarded them. It asks the right questions, it guides the user, it is able to answer specific questions about how to use the platform and things like that, so that we try to minimize the amount of users that get lost in the platform or with the usage of the AI.
That makes a lot of sense, and I see a lot of, I believe that most of the successful companies these days that are not completely B2C, B2C is a different beast, but in terms of in the B2B space, people who are building, I see that those who rise to the top are taking a similar approach, being very high touch, giving the 11 stars experience, like you mentioned, because otherwise it's very hard to have happy customers and you ruin your reputation and you don't gain the knowledge. So many pluses for just building the service first and injecting LLMs whenever possible, wherever possible, and whenever possible.
100%.
Excellent. So I want to be respectful of your time, so I want to start concluding. But before I do, there is one question that I feel obligated to ask. So I'm curious in terms of go-to-market, based on all the customers that you're seeing that are using your platform. Is there any signals, significant signals that you see lately that are working better? Let's say customers that doing automated outreach after a job post, or customers who are just blasting from volume. So just curious to hear what is surprising or interesting, because you have such a broad overview of go-to-market, what our go-to-market teams are doing.
Yeah. So my point of view on go-to-market tactics is that there's the following two things. One is that every go-to-market organization has like their own unique DNA, and each unique DNA requires a different go-to-market motion that would, excel within that organization. And the reason for that is that you have usually different buyers than most of the other people there, and you have a different value proposition to these buyers than most of the people within your space. And then you even have a different talent stack within your organization, and that talent stack could, whether you're a cold calling organization. So if you're a cold calling organization, and I would say, look, you need to double down your LinkedIn automation game, I'm not sure that's what will help you, because your edge is in cold calling, right? Yeah. So it really depends on your DNA. That is one thing. The second thing is that in go-to-market, because attention is scarce, and it's a zero-sum game. You're always fighting over like a finite amount of attention, of eyeballs, basically. And so there's like this rule that is called the law of distribution arbitrage, which means, it's a complex name for something simple. That means that in distribution and marketing and go-to-market, the playbook that you deploy, the more people copy it, the less valuable it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm doing cold email, just like everyone else, then the efficiency of this channel will, decrease significantly the more people do it, right? Yeah. So what you should always try to look for is the arbitrage, like the playbook that not a lot of people are using, that is doubling down on your unique DNA. Okay, so that question might be too philosophical and might be too high level, but it means that you need to really get an unfair advantage in go-to-market. You need to understand what is your unique DNA, what are you already good at, what you can double down on. And then you need to identify tactics that are not super conventional, because if they're super conventional, then they're not really valuable. And I can give a few examples if that's interesting, but I think that, that is the most important thing to understand about go-to-market.
Excellent. Actually, initially, when I asked the question and you started answering, I said to myself, what a dumb question. What did you expect? But later on, when you elaborated, I said, looking back, I'm happy that he answered, because it was an excellent answer. It's actually the truth, it's context dependent. And you should always seek where you have an unfair advantage, just to be honest. So it's not about this signal or the other signal or the anonymization, or it's more complex. Life is too complex.
I'll give you an example, though, to make it more practical.
Yeah.
Okay. So, at SWAN, and I didn't mention before, we were just, building the first autonomous business. We're just 3 people scaling to, $30 million ARR, like $10 million ARR per employee. That's the goal here. And to get an edge on go-to-market, we didn't use like off-the-shelf playbooks or off-the-shelf agents. We built it, all the motion and all the AI agents internally around, my edge, basically, as the single go-to-market person on the team. And my edge is in storytelling and in the LinkedIn game, as you mentioned early on. And so we built like the entire, the army of these AI agents around my LinkedIn game, basically. And so we don't have like email agents or something like that, because everything is built around my posts, the interaction with these posts, my connection requests that I get, everything around that. And so that's like a practical example of how we identify that our unique DNA is storytelling on LinkedIn, and how we can double down on that to generate more demand and, an extremely efficient way.
I love it. Excellent. Thank you so much, Amos. I really appreciate your time and your insights. Where can people learn more about you guys? Obviously, you mentioned in LinkedIn. So, but share if you want to share a bit more.
Yeah, so definitely there's LinkedIn, and then there's a newsletter called The Big Shift, which I share, my wins and losses of building an autonomous business, the frameworks, the learnings, etc. It's a weekly newsletter, so if you want to get like an inside look of what does it mean to build an autonomous business, then definitely subscribe. And we can share the links in the
For sure.
description of the episode, etc. And I also have like a digital clone, a version of myself. It's called Autonomous. And you can chat with it and learn more about, if you have questions about how we build Swan. So it has, been trained on all of my posts and the frameworks and everything that I wrote. So it has a lot of knowledge, maybe even better than myself.
Also, maybe I'll invite him for a follow-up episode.
Yeah, it will be more fun, I'm sure.
Great. Excellent. Thank you so much, Amos. Take care.
It was a pleasure.